example, First Super covers workers in the timber industry. It gave $2 and a bit million to the CFMEU. CBUS established for construction workers over $1 million given to the unions. These monies are declared to the Australian Electoral Commission, but the fact is your superannuation money is being used for products and services allegedly, and the providers are mostly unions. According to the Australian Electoral Commission's Transparency Register, the CFMEU collected over $4 million, almost $5 million, from your super funds in 2019-20. But if you think it can't get worse, think again. Because you see, have politicians and public servants' superannuation. Is it going to be taxed? You see, the rules were changed for public servants in 1990 and for federal politicians in 2005. People who entered Parliament before 2004 were part of the Parliamentary Contributory Superannuation Scheme. I mean, basically, you stuck money in, the politicians stuck money in, and the taxpayer matched the dough. Good deal. Mark Latham was the person who said this has to stop. But the least an MP on that old scheme can receive is 50% of their annual pay if they served 8 years in the Parliament. But then there's an additional 2.5% of their pay on top of that for each year served. And if the MP has spent 18 or more years in Parliament, they automatically get 75% of their salary based on the highest office they held during their career. 75%, say, of ministerial role. Anthony Albanese has been in the Parliament for 27 years. He's part of this rort. He'd be entitled to a base pension of about $163,000 per annum base because he served more than 18 years. But if you factor in his position as Prime Minister, former opposition leader, former minister, his annual pension, superannuation, will be well over $400,000 when he goes. Wayne Swan, well over $300,000. Yet Wayne Swan, in an exercise of extraordinary hypocrisy, has backed the case for no concessional tax on earnings from super over $3 million. He said, quote, if you have $3 million in a super account, you don't need generous tax concessions. This is a bloke who's the beneficiary of generous taxpayer-funded super, who's most probably on, as I said, a pension of $300,000. Now, to qualify for that, he would need, in the current scheme, $6 million in pension assets. Now, remember, after $3 million, double tax. He'd need $6 million if he only got a 5% return. So if he wants the concessional tax to cut out at $3 million, how do the same rules apply to him and all of his cronies bleating about how much these concessions cost? I repeat, the combined cost of parliamentary and public service defined benefit schemes, and the defined benefit scheme was the old scheme whereby you were entitled at the end of your service to a percentage of your final average salary. So, of course, if you're the Prime Minister, I mean, the percentage was rock high. So people like Wayne Swan and Anthony Albanese are beneficiaries. The combined cost of public servants and politicians, your money will be nearly $13 billion in 20 years' time. Now, by all means, put a cap on the amount, which cap is now $3 million, for which you can gain a concessional tax rate. After that, as you heard yesterday, the tax is doubled. No problem. But what is sickening is that we are being preached to by people in the Labor Party who've got their snouts heavily in the taxpayers' trough, whether they've got their mates as high-salaried directors of these super funds, or whether their union mates get all sorts of payments from your super funds. And all up, there's over $30 billion in fees and charges each year taken from your superannuation money. $30 billion, $30,000 million. Yet this same mob are talking about superannuation reform. Tax some, but keep your snout in the taxation trough for yourself. I'll tell you something. I'll keep at this to the point of boredom until some honesty prevails.